Welcome to the Post 66 Member Orientation Part 2. Learning Objectives. Through this training, participants will receive a basic orientation on the purpose and operations of the American Legion, Post 66. Remember, the most important things in the American Legion are not things. Keep members happy. Member retention is about keeping members happy. We feel happy when the members of our Legion family are friendly and our post makes us feel appreciated and valued. Members want to take pride in their post standing in the community and know that their leaders are held in high regard. Keeping the members of our American Legion family happy is not always easy. All our American Legion family members need to help keep Post 66 a happy post for our members and guests.
Post 66 American Legion Family. The Post 66 American Legion family began in 1919 when Post 66 and our Auxiliary Chapter 66 were chartered. Our American Legion family now includes our son's Squadron 66. It is the good work of our American Legion family that provides much of the support necessary for the success of our American Legion programs. We do not currently have a Legion Riders chapter. In 2019, during the 100th birthday of the American Legion, a series of videos were produced to help celebrate our first century of serving our veterans, the military, and their families. This video highlights the history of our auxiliary and our sons.
Hi, I'm Jarek.
Hi, I'm Lorna.
We're going on a journey to discover the legacy of the American Legion
And how that history of the Legion is shaping the vision for our future. As the American Legion was taking shape in 1919, newly chartered posts across the country were already including widows, wives, mothers, sisters, and daughters of veterans in their plans and activities. It was a familiar model. The Grand Army of the Republic, the prominent organization of Civil War Union veterans, depended on its Women's Relief Corps Auxiliary to help advance the GAR causes. Other patriotic women's groups of the 19th and early 20th centuries, such as Daughters of the American Revolution, had established themselves as beacons of service in their communities by the time the American Legion was formed. The American Legion established a committee on auxiliaries to take up the matter at the First National Convention in Minneapolis. A number of existing women's groups came to the convention and offered to serve as auxiliaries to the American Legion. The committee, however, politely declined their proposals. They decided the American Legion needed an auxiliary of its own.
The American Legion Auxiliary didn't wait. By the time the American Legion formalized plans to start an auxiliary in 1920, the American Legion Auxiliary already had more than 130,000 members in 40 states. Auxiliary conventions had already been conducted in places as far away as Honolulu, Hawaii in 1920. And in 1921, at Kansas City, the American Legion Auxiliary had its first national convention.
By that time, the American Legion Auxiliary was firmly established. Within 4 years of that first convention, American Legion Auxiliary membership nearly doubled to 207,000. The auxiliary supported all the key principles and interests of the American Legion, forming an influential hospitalization committee to match up with the Legion Veterans Rehabilitation Program. Support for disabled veterans became a key mission for the auxiliary in the 1920s, when services and facilities were far and few between.
To support disabled veterans and remember those who did not come home, the American Legion Auxiliary and the early Legion advanced an international program to manufacture and distribute artificial poppies in return for donations that would help veterans in need. The American Legion Auxiliary pioneered efforts to convert the program into a therapeutic activity for hospitalized veterans. From materials supplied by the Legion and Auxiliary, veterans made silk or crepe-papered poppies for Memorial Day distribution. Funds raised were spent to improve services or simply make life a little more bearable for those who were disabled. The American Legion Auxiliary also took a firm stance on the need for a strong military, as it does today. In 1924, the Auxiliary helped organize an all-American conference in Washington, D.C., where nearly 70 women's groups representing millions of women drove home the point that lasting peace depends on a strong defense. Longtime American Legion Auxiliary National Secretary Gwendolyn Wiggin McDowell put it this way after World War II.
Women who saw the danger of pacifism and disarmament were given a rallying place and a sounding board for making their voices heard in Congress. Congress was made to see that a very sizable and vocal proportion of American womanhood was not in favor of trusting the future of the United States to the goodwill of nations like Germany and Japan. In every city and town through the United States, local units of the Auxiliary became strong points for the stand against pacifism, telling the public about and winning support of the Legion's National Defense Program. The pacifist organizations could no longer claim the solid support of American women.
In 1938, American Legion Auxiliary Girls State began, just 3 years after American Legion Boys State originated in Illinois. Its mission, like American Legion Boys State, was to encourage young women to become knowledgeable and active in government. 9 years later, American Legion Auxiliary Girls Nation began in Washington, D.C., and, as was the case for Boys Nation, Legionnaire President Harry Truman was there to greet the first class. The program has inspired thousands of leaders over the decades. One such participant, Michelle Johnson of Spencer, Iowa, ran for governor of Hawkeye American Legion Auxiliary Girls State in 1976. She didn't win, but she took her first plane ride that year to an American Legion Auxiliary-sponsored bicentennial celebration in Washington, D.C. The next year, she was accepted into the U.S. Air Force Academy. Michelle Johnson rose to Lieutenant General in the Air Force, and in 2013 became the first female superintendent in command of the Academy at Colorado Springs. In 2014, the American Legion Auxiliary named Lieutenant General Johnson its Woman of the Year. The American Legion Auxiliary expanded its support for veterans in 2000 by sponsoring, with VA, the National Veterans Creative Arts Festival. The annual event helps veterans heal through art, dance, music, and creative writing.
In 2019, the American Legion changed its constitution and bylaws to expand eligibility in the American Legion Auxiliary to spouses of wartime veterans and military personnel, male or female.
From Poppy Distributions to Girls State to the Creative Arts Festival, the American Legion Auxiliary has upheld the values of the Legion and worked alongside Legionnaires in communities, states, and the nation to strengthen America in uncountable ways since 1919.
The next member of what would become the American Legion family was born at the 14th National Convention in Portland, Oregon in 1932. 3 years of study led to a resolution to establish the Sons of the American Legion. Male descendants of wartime veterans could now join their American Legion and auxiliary parents. The Sons quickly grew in the 1930s, and in 1938, Paramount Pictures made a 60-minute movie titled Sons of the Legion. The movie starred Donald O'Connor, who would later become famous for Singin' in the Rain, and William Frawley, who later played Fred Mertz on TV's I Love Lucy. By the end of 1939, the Sons of the American Legion had more than 72,500 members, operating in local squadrons and state detachments across the country.
But when World War II hit, a large number of Sons went off to fight, and when they came back, they became Legionnaires. Membership in the Sons fell off after World War II, but soon began a long upward climb to a record high of nearly 370,000 by the end of 2017. That same year, the Sons of the American Legion presented $300,000 to the American Legion for its temporary financial assistance program, which provides grants for military and veteran families in need. But that wasn't all.
In a historic year of accomplishments in 2017, the Sons also provided
$2.1 million and more than 269,000 volunteer hours for American Legion children and youth programs.
More than 400,000 volunteer hours and $1.7 million in cash donations for VA healthcare facilities.
Nearly $600,000 in donations to the Legion's Child Welfare Foundation.
Sponsorships for more than 1,000 American Legion Boys State participants.
And nearly 14,000 flag retirement ceremonies.
The American Legion Auxiliary, and Sons of the American Legion are, in fact, a family.
Post leadership. The American Legion is a volunteer organization, and all our leaders are volunteers. Whether leaders are elected or appointed, we bestow upon them the authority to make the best decisions they can to help us succeed. Once we grant the authority to lead, we are compelled to follow our leaders. The election of post leaders begins with nominations being made at the April and May membership meetings. Elections are held at the May membership meeting after nominations are completed. The election of our executive committee precedes the post commander's selection of all our appointed leaders in Post 66. Our elected leaders' executive committee are: Post Commander, first among equals; First Vice Commander; Second Vice Commander; Finance Officer; Adjutant; and 3 executive committee members at large. New member webpage. This page was designed to welcome new members and help them better understand the who, what, when, where, and how of Post 66 operations. CALegionstore.com. A link to the department's online store can be found under the Home tab of our Post 66 website. The American Legion Online Store, emblem.legion.org, is where Legionnaires can purchase a uniform cap, and much more. Allow 6 to 8 weeks for delivery of uniform caps. Member surveys. Knowing and using the resources of our American Legion family is a powerful skill of leadership. Surveys can help us get to know our members better. Using surveys, we can find out what members want to do, what skills they have, and how much time and energy members wish to devote to our post. Paid up for life, POFL. There is a paid up for life option for dues payment. Although considered by some to be pricey, out of our 300 members, over 70 have purchased the paid up for life dues payment option. Consolidated Post Report, CPR. The Consolidated Post Report was developed by the American Legion in the 1970s. It tracks the performance of individual posts in a number of key areas. The areas of activity reported in the CPR are: 1. Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation; 2. National Security; 3. Media and Communications; 4. Veterans Employment and Education; 5. Americanism; 6. Children and Youth (CNY); and 7. Internal Affairs and Membership. As such, the CPR is a report card that tells us how we perform in the areas being reported. As an example, the pints of blood our members report as donated are recorded under the topic of national security. The number of pints we donate is then consolidated or added to the pints of blood donated by our district, area, and department. Eventually, a consolidated report of how much blood was donated by Legionnaires across the nation is created. The National Consolidated Report is included within the report the American Legion is required to make to Congress. As such, the CPR is a report card that tells us how we perform in the areas being reported. Finance, dues and fundraising. Annual post dues. The Post 66 annual dues are $50. National per capita, $23.50. Department per capita, $15. Post 66 only keeps $11.50 of a member's $50 annual dues payment. $11.50 divided by 12 equals less than $1 per member per month. For many years, our annual pancake breakfast provided sufficient funds for our programs. In our current economy, we need to develop new sources of income. Bingo is one source of income being investigated. Finances and budgets. An effective annual budget with quality event budgets helps to keep our post-financial boat afloat. The annual budget tells us how much money we need to survive. Our event budgets tells us the financial productivity of each event. Budgeting topics include the annual budgets process, event budgets, fundraising, donations, and the proper handling of restricted funds. Medical Equipment Program. Our post-service officer is responsible for the development, operation, and management of our Boyd-Bristol Medical Equipment Program. Our medical equipment program collects medical equipment donated by the community. We then distribute the medical equipment to veterans, their families, and community agencies for use as long as they need it. Our medical equipment program is an important and honorable commitment to serving our veterans, their families, and many community agencies. The Buddy Check Program. Through phone calls, texts, emails, letters, cards, and face-to-face meetings, Buddy Checks let veterans and their families know that Post 66 cares. Both the veterans being contacted and those members of our Legion family making the contacts are enriched by the Buddy Check process. It is a very special Post 66 activity. The American Legion has a national resolution calling for Buddy Checks to be conducted in the weeks leading up to Veterans Day and the American Legion's birthday in March. Post 66 conducts Buddy Checks year-round.
Legionnaires, family and friends, National Commander Dan Seehafer here. By now you have heard of the American Legion's Be the One mission to prevent veteran suicide. The most important component of that mission is the Buddy Check. It's catching on not just within the Legion, but throughout the veteran community, including the Department of Veteran Affairs. The concept is simple. Call or visit a veteran and see how he or she is doing. You don't have to be buddies to make that first contact, but that's how friendship begins. Let that veteran know that you care about his or her well-being. Let them know that there are resources available if they are in crisis. It doesn't have to be Veterans Day or the American Legion's birthday to do this. In fact, today, right now even, would be perfect. Most veterans are not in crisis, but Buddy Checks are multi-purpose. By building camaraderie and fellowship, we strengthen the veteran community and our American Legion. We even have a great toolkit to help you with this. You can download it by going to legion.org/buddycheck. That's legion.org/buddycheck. Remember, we can all be the one to save one. God bless you all, and yes, God bless America.
The American Legion Basic Training. The American Legion's official basic training program is for officers, members, Legion college applicants, and those who simply want to expand their knowledge of the nation's largest veterans service organization. It is a free self-paced online training for the American Legion family that is highly recommended for all leaders of our American Legion family. Much of the training focuses on our 4 pillars of service. Basic training topics. History and Organization, Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation, National Security, Americanism, Children and Youth, Course Conclusion, and Final Exam. Basic training is available online at legion.org/training. Legion College. There are two versions of the American Legion College that California Legionnaires can attend. The California American Legion College is conducted in California and is staffed by a well-qualified and enthusiastic staff from throughout California. It is held in the spring and fall. A next session is October 18 to 20, 2024. A National American Legion College is held annually in Indianapolis, Indiana. Legion College is designed for Legionnaires interested in operating a more prosperous and relevant American Legion post within their respective communities. The end.